So, hi everyone, and hi Brooklyn. Welcome to this new session of the Women's Growth Series. I'm super excited to have you here with us today. I'm going to let you quickly introduce yourself and then I'll go after you.
Perfect. My name is Brook-Lyn Hibbs. I am an account executive with Homepoint. I cover Texas and I have been in the mortgage business since 2001. So I'm super excited to be here. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. And my name is Yasmine Abdi. I am a loan officer located in Massachusetts. I am with Superior Rate Mortgage of New England. I'm a broker. I love my community. And I'm also licensed in New Hampshire and Florida. And I'm very, very excited about today's topic. So today we're going to talk about gaps in employment and how do we handle that in the mortgage process. This is going to be very informative for everyone listening and for me too. I'm really excited about this. So we do have a few questions for you, Brooklyn, today, and we're hoping you can answer those for us. So we're going to start with just talking about how does unemployment affect getting a mortgage. So I feel like this is a big question. We get this all the time, especially with COVID and everything that happened.
Right.
So how could you answer this for us?
Yeah. So, and unemployment, I mean, there's a couple different pieces to it. So, are they unemployed? Are they a seasonal worker, or is there just a job gap that they've experienced, in the last, I would say 12 months, because job gaps are more, prevalent than they have been in the past. People are experiencing, a gap because of a job loss due to the pandemic, or a spouse that decides to re-enter their workforce, or somebody that decided the career that they were in no longer was a fit and took the time off to research to, join a new career. So it really kind of comes down to, what's the story of the borrower? Were they unemployed? Was there a gap, or are they just a seasonal worker? Because we do see seasonal workers a lot. For an example, a landscaper, where their busy season may be the spring until fall. And, in a seasonal worker, we're kind of looking for a 2-year history of them having, seasonal experience. And that's okay. That's allowed. It doesn't mean, they have a gap in the winter. They're not going to be able to not get a mortgage. That's not accurate. So it's really kind of digging into what the borrower, what their history looks like. What have they been doing? So, yes.
All right, that sounds good. And so how long can borrowers have a gap to still get approved for a mortgage?
Yeah,
What is
great.
allowable? Yeah.
Great question. I know so if it's just a gap, let's look at FHA first. If you have a gap that's longer than 6 months, FHA truly wants that borrower back on the job 6 months, and then you have your case assignment, assigned. So really looking for 6 months back on the job with FHA. Now for us with USDA, conventional, VA, there's wiggle room. I mean, if that gap is just a couple months, like let's dig into your borrower's, history, what they're doing right now. If it's longer than 6 months, it doesn't necessarily disqualify them. Again, paint the picture, have the conversation, and let's look. So there's a lot of compensating factors that an underwriter will look at. Reserves, LTV, FICO score, payment shock is a big one. If they have a gap, they were living with parents and they're going from possibly, no rent or very cheap rent to a $2,000 mortgage payment, let's look at the overall profile of the borrower to see if they've experienced a gap, if we can make it work for them.
Okay. All right. And what kind of documents do the borrowers need to provide? So let's say someone has a gap of 5 months. They were probably out for a reason. So I assume a letter of explanation, maybe. I'll let you answer this question.
I am of the fact that you want to have a very detailed letter. Tell me your story. Paint the picture, because you don't want an underwriter to get their hands on it. You haven't done your due diligence, and the underwriter goes, what I would call, down a rabbit hole and forms their own story. So give me a detailed letter. Tell me why you had a gap, whether it was, hey, I was laid off because of COVID, or, a medical or a loss, or you took time to find a new career, or you were a stay-at-home parent and decided, you know what, my kids are grown, I want to get back into the workforce. Just be upfront, do a detailed letter of explanation. And I would say for me, and I'm with my clients, I'm like, let's have the conversation, because I don't want you to go all the way down the path of submitting a loan into underwriting, not checking in, not having that conversation with your account executive or an underwriter. Tell me what's going on. Tell me about your borrower, because every borrower is different. Every situation is different. I am of the opinion, give me the LOE, but also give me the dates. And not necessarily giving me, the application, but I want to know their work history, where they were at. Did they have any schooling prior to? Give me all the details. And I know that seems like a lot, but it's better to do it up front than you get into underwriting. You've processed a whole file and somebody comes back and says, this is a no. Take a few minutes up front. And like I said, have the conversation with your account executive, your underwriter, whoever you have built a relationship with at your lender, and take the time, because it's really going to save you and your borrowers in the back end. And you especially don't want a borrower to go get under a purchase contract and you haven't done your work up front, because right now with this market, I mean, if you get under a contract, like, we want to make sure that you're getting that house, because it's crazy out there.
So stressful. Yeah.
Yes. So
Thank you.
use your account executive or your underwriting team. I mean, a lot of lenders will have an underwriting scenario desk. But I've always told my clients, over the last 19 years, come to me. Like, we have to have open dialogue to make sure that your loans get through.
Yeah. So. Of course. I mean, as a loan officer, having an account executive that's almost like my best friend is critical to my business. If I need to be able to text, call, email at any time, because as you said, every borrower has a different situation and we don't have answers to everything. And most of all, we don't want to say no to someone who might qualify, and basically kill their dreams. So thank you for all you do.
Yeah, thanks. No, and great points. I mean, we want to make sure everybody has the dream of, owning a home, and it may just take, hey, you need 2 more months on the job, and then underwriting is comfortable with what we've seen. Like, it's a simple question. Let's get somebody into a house once we know that they fit into the boxes that are formed by, the agencies. And so it's good.
Yeah. All right. So another question that I have for you, what if someone has a gap in their resume? How do we handle that? Is there like a specific period that we need to look for? How does it work?
Yeah, so I would say, if there's a gap, let's look. What's the gap for? And then I would say, can we build out a history? If we have somebody that, for an example, I have somebody now that just graduated out of college and, got their degree in engineering. Pandemic hit, couldn't find a job. So now we have a gap. He's got his school history, reinvented himself right after college and decided he wanted to go into a different kind of engineering, and was able to get on with a company in Nashville. So it was painting the picture that he had transcripts. And then he took some coding classes as an example, and then found a job. So filling in the gap and making sure that you have painted the picture is what usually will happen. So an underwriter can be understanding. They just need to know the entire story up front.
Okay, awesome. And how about the requirements for employment in general, whether it's FHA or conventional? I get a lot of calls from my clients saying, hey, I don't think I qualify. I haven't been at this job for 2 years. So do we need 2 years at the same job, or just 2 years of employment history? And what are the differences between FHA and, let's say, conventional?
Yeah, so I've always been of the preference, looking for a 2-year history. There used to be a 2x2x2 rule that was always several years ago. Looking for a 2-year history. School transcripts from college can fill in a 2-year history, especially if somebody is just getting out of school and, trying to buy a house, is in the workforce. Let me know every job. you want to make sure that your application for that borrower is completely filled in. If they were at employer A for 6 months and then went to employer B and then maybe employer C, we're looking for that 2-year history. And I would say if you have somebody that has been possibly, and I don't want to call them a job jumper, but they've kind of moved around, that would be another scenario that I would reach out to the underwriter and say, hey, I've got somebody here. We have a 2-year history of, college and a couple jobs. But what do you think? Do you feel like they need to be on this job, a couple more months just to show us some stability and longevity in the workforce? And it also boils down to how are they paid? Are they hourly? Are they salaried? You get into variable income right now, Fannie and Freddie, and the agencies have been a little bit more, they're looking in at variable income and making sure that there's, a history, and it's the hourly employment is what they're looking for under their guidelines. How do they get paid? A commissioned person that just became commissioned, a little bit over 12 months, they're really looking for 2 years. So it's really knowing the guidelines and looking to see how your borrower gets paid too. And, 2-year history, how do they get paid? Does it fit into the box that underwriting is looking for?
Okay, perfect. And how about, so let's still talk about FHA. If someone has a gap in employment and is looking to buy a house using FHA, what are they allowing right now for gaps? And
less than 6 months back on the job, have a conversation with your account executive. That falls into their guidelines. If that gap is over 6 months, 6 months back on the job is FHA's kind of their hard and fast rule right now is what we're seeing. They're really looking for stability for that borrower. So let me ask you, if a borrower comes to you and they have a gap, how do you have that conversation with your clients that are coming to you? What questions are you asking? That way, maybe it'll help another LO or broker down the road if, to hear how you handle your clients.
Yeah, I feel like as loan officers, like we have been really challenged in the past months when it comes to this specific topic because everyone got affected in one way or another during COVID. They either have a gap of 2-3 months, maybe they switched jobs, maybe they've been on unemployment for 6 months. They went from maybe working for themselves and then they had to shut down their business and go work for somebody else. So like there is so many scenarios that anytime I get a client who has kind of, a different type of situation, I just try to ask as many questions as possible. I try to get the exact dates. Hey, when was your last day at this job? When did you start again? How come? Why? Is there any information we can get from your HR department? So I never say, oh, I don't think we can use this or not. No, not at all. I just ask questions, get as many details as possible. And then I have, my notes, I review everything. Sometimes I know, I already know the answer and I'm confident. But a lot of the times, I ask my coworkers, my processors, I give a call to my underwriters, and most importantly, my account executive. That's the person that I need the most. And we discuss everything. And most of the time, we already have a good, confident answer about that situation. And then, I go back to the client and we try to find a good plan for them.
Awesome. That's good. I would say to your point, you're having the conversation, hey, can we get information from your HR? I am seeing as a tip and tool, and I don't know if everybody's doing it up front, but if you have somebody that has had multiple jobs in the last 2 years, have your VOEs, your verbal verification of employments, have those done up front instead of being conditioned for them. So your underwriter already has that in the file when it comes in, because that's going to save you from having, another condition added to your loan. Go ahead and get those. That way they're there. That'll help the underwriter immensely, and definitely knowing, hey, we have confirmed our dates. We know, when he or she worked, and we've got it outlined for them. So just a helpful tip for y'all to help with your underwriters. So.
Yeah, and it alleviates so much of the stress because you're like, oh, all right, because employment and income is the most stressful topic, whenever we're approving someone, and especially after they have a house under contract. If we're not 100% sure of that income, then
Yes.
it's just a very stressful transaction. So I totally agree with you.
Yeah, I've seen too many files come in where they're like, well, they told me they worked so, here and there, and you go to do a verification, the VOE, and nope, those dates don't align. And so it's easier to have it up front. It takes just a couple seconds to make a phone call to say, hey, did so-and-so work here? Can you tell me the dates? It helps immensely. So
yeah. Awesome. Well, Brook-Lyn, if you don't have any other questions for me, I think we're good.
Awesome. Thank you so much for your time, and I appreciate it. Thanks for reaching out. So
perfect. Thank you so much. We appreciate your knowledge. We appreciate your time. And have a good day.
Thanks. You too. Bye, y'all.